One last topic we'd like to look at would be the dual team part, and that's actually my favorite part of the state series. I really enjoy the dual teams. And Tuesday night we'll host our sectionals, and then Saturday over in Bloomington would be the finals for all three classes. And for those viewers who haven't been following along, Iowa this past year changed their process of doing their dual team part of it. They didn't like the way it was, so they basically went through and took their dual team and put it on the Wednesday right before the state individual series, and they found that this really created some bad situations. Teams that had quality kids who were hoping to win individual state championships were held out of this. So Greg, if you could maybe take a look at a couple different things for me as far as our system. First of all, is there any chance to make some minor changes here as far as maybe taking the top two teams from a regional and getting them into the team part of it? And to continue with that, maybe once a team qualifies from a regional to maybe seed it to try and get the better teams over to Bloomington?
Yeah, those are great questions. And in fact, those have been recommended from our Coaches Advisory Committee, of which we have coaches from across the state representing different areas of the state sit in on what we call a Wrestling Advisory Committee. And from that committee, those guys share their thoughts and ideas about changes. And both of which you stated, those recommendations to allow the first and second place team finishers at a regional to maybe wrestle in a match prior to the sectional match, and the recommendation, what was the second?
Second thing we were looking at was to seed the team.
Yeah, the seeding was also suggested to maybe prior to the sectional seed the teams were recommended to our board as possible changes, and this past year they did not pass our board based on viewing all sports and the processes at that time didn't follow through with that recommendation. That doesn't mean we can't bring it again with some other ideas or tweaks to those recommendations, but currently those aren't in play, and as you know, but it doesn't mean that it will never happen. Like the Thursday wrestling was recommended for a number of years from our advisory committee, and now we have it. So it sometimes takes some patience, sometimes takes some changes in philosophy to make some changes occur.
And one last question concerning the state tournament series. In the past, it's always been they come down here for the individual part, and there's never been, recently there's never been team scores taken. Instead, the state champions determined at the duels. Is it possible, or are you looking at through your committee and your advisory committee maybe to actually score this as a tournament and actually crown a team champion down here in the individual series?
Yeah, I continue to hear that, especially from the veterans that know that this did take place years back and likely was occurring before we had the dual team state series. And those that were there during that time believe that it would make a significant change in what it might bring to our individual state tournament, with the fact that we're going to crown a champion or some first, second, third place. And again, I hate to be redundant, but this exact recommendation came from our advisory committee a little over a year ago. And that went to the board, and the board said at this time they felt like we have the individual state tournament where we crown individuals, and we have the dual team state tournament. And at that time, I think their belief was to crown two different state champions for wrestling was redundant. And again, you know, it's not that it can't be recommended again, but currently our board believes if we're going to have two separate tournaments, we need to wait in terms of the team crowning, where we give a team champion, recognize a team champion. It should happen at the dual team tournament, and currently leave the individual as an individual tournament, medaling those.
I know this is a busy time of year for you. Maybe explain to everybody the different things that starting last week with the sectionals, working your way this week to the individual state, and next week with the team state, some of the different things you have to do as an individual.
Yeah, it's an exciting time for me being an administrator for wrestling. I get to go out. I'm very fortunate in my position to travel, to see officials work, to see wrestlers wrestle, coaches coach. I love to get out and see and get into different schools that are hosting our regionals and our sectionals. So on the Saturday of regionals, I was driving around trying to get in and see a lot of different guys work. Same thing happened on Friday and Saturday of sectionals. I was up north at Barrington High School and Glenbard North High School on Friday night, came back home and then traveled up to Sterling and then to Lamont to see some more sectional, and then of course the fact that we get 3 solid days of wrestling here, only enhances what we're providing our kids and our coaches and the wrestling community, I think. And so, like hopefully all of you are excited about what we've generated and interest and what we're providing kids in regards to wrestling. I can't be more happier with the progress we've made and opening up opportunities.
So one last question before I let Kevin wrap it up here. Something that popped into my mind. Can you explain to the people, our viewers, how a suggestion goes through the approval process? I know you mentioned the board of directors. What makes up the board of directors? Also, I've heard in the past principals of member schools have some say in the decision process. Can you explain how that all happens and suggestions get approved or denied? Yeah,
absolutely. As we've talked previous, we have that advisory committee that's made up of wrestling coaches, a couple administrators, and an official in the sport of wrestling. I oversee that committee, and we annually, and we'll do so in about less than a month from right now, sit down, we'll review our terms and conditions, which is basically is all of our state series and how we go about our state series, and if there's any recommendations, and we've talked a few of them that have come before us prior to this current season we're in. And so once they're recommended from that committee, they become then reviewed by 2 different groups prior to getting to our board. They're reviewed by the IHSA staff. They're reviewed by a panel of what's called the Athletic Advisory Committee, made up of athletic directors all over the state. They make their thoughts and ideas, recommendations, or denials. And again, it's not final until it gets to our board of directors that we've referenced a number of times, which is made up of member school principals. Again, they're geographically represented on our board. They're voted on by principals from all over the state who's going to represent their areas, and they sit and review, and they're the ultimate approval or denial of any of the recommendations that come out of the advisory committee. So, and that's important in terms of the IHSA. It's a principals organization, and they have the best interests of all of our kids, and so that's why it's left up to them to make that determination.
So if some of the viewers wanted to maybe push some of the issues, you might recommend that they contact your committee and so on, as far as, nicely say, hey, we as wrestling fans would appreciate maybe if this took place?
Yeah, they're more than welcome to. In fact, on our website, if you go to the wrestling homepage, you can click on advisory committee. You can see all those represented. All of them except for the one official are representatives of schools, so you could go to the index of your schools and find their email address, reach out to them, and that's what, in a short time, I'm going to meet with a number of coaches, and that'll have a number of recommendations, and ultimately that's what I'm going to tell them, is they need to reach out to those advisory members that are representative in their areas and tell them their thoughts. And everybody's got ideas for change. We like to hear a variety of ideas and try to bring something that will basically make things better for everybody.
You've been on the job now for 2 years, and you've been able to get through some different things as far as what we as coaches like to think are for the good of the sport and making it a lot better. Just to tell us, maybe, I know you're still growing with the job, what's the most enjoyable part of your job, and then also maybe what's the toughest part of doing your work?
Yeah, the greatest thing is the thrills, and you see it here during the state final weekend. While it's not exciting to see the downs and lows, but just to see the kids compete and the quality of wrestling, the quality of coaches we have across the state, it's just incredible for me to see the interaction of coaches with wrestlers and kids develop, and to see a kid overcome something, or to see the kid handle a tough situation in a very positive, sportsmanlike way is very, it's just reassuring to me that interscholastic sports are doing the right things for kids, and that's what I really enjoy, is to see the interaction, to see the kids have fun. The difficult things for me, and the things that are tough, are to make those rulings when people aren't following our rules, aren't abiding by our guidelines, and we have to step in and eliminate the possibilities of kids advancing or taking away opportunities. We try to educate participants, coaches, and obviously schools on our rules and bylaws and guidelines, and when they follow them, and everybody follows them, it runs very smoothly. But when people step out of line or don't abide by our rules, and then we have to make some tough decisions, and that's usually eliminating an opportunity for a kid or a coach, and those are the tough things that you don't like to do, but they have to be done according to our rules so that we have people follow them.
Again, to finish this off, Craig, thanks a lot. I know you're busy this weekend, but through Mike's website, Illinois Matmen, a lot of viewers out there, they'll get the message, and hopefully they kind of understand how things now work with the state and some of the different things that you as that we as a state for our wrestling programs are trying to accomplish. And again, thanks a lot, Craig.
Yeah, thank you.